This is DC, powered by people and ideas, where the community comes together, voices are heard, and decisions are shaped.
So I want to start by saying, welcome home.
Connecting you to what matters and to each other.
How you doing? You know, what's the tea?
I'm Lorenzo Hall, and this is the DC Beat. Welcome to this special edition of the DC Beat. I'm Lorenzo Hall. So we are almost there. Primary election day is fast approaching, but as you can see right here, early in-person voting is already underway in the district, and there are a number of critical races on the ballot. We're talking the at-large seat, DC delegate, and yes, the race for mayor. For the first time, current mayor Muriel Bowser's name will not appear on the ballot. And as you know, here on this show, I've had conversations with nearly all the candidates in the race for mayor, and I want to revisit some of those talks and also check in with the front runners, Janeese Lewis George and Kenyan McDuffie. Let's start with current Ward 4 council member Janeese Lewis George. How are you feeling?
Oh my goodness, I'm feeling good. It was a wholesome feeling, really. Just all the hard work you've put in over the last couple of months. I just thinking about my DC story, my family story. Really emotional going in there, just casting that ballot just now.
Yeah. What are you telling voters with roughly a week to go until primary election day? This is the end.
Yeah, I'm just telling people that this moment really is about who do you trust to show up for you and fight for residents in all 8 wards. And I want people to go into the ballot box not in fear. There's been a lot of fear mongering in this election, but to go in the ballot box with hope, to go in with determination, to go in with purpose, go in the ballot box with a heart full of change and the will to know that change can happen if they come out and actually vote.
Yeah, what do you mean by the fear mongering, though? What do you think people are feeling when you reference that?
Yeah, this is change. This city is in a moment of change. This is the first time in 12 years we'll have a new mayor. The first time in over 30 years we'll have a new congressperson, and just so many new council members. So obviously change can be often scary for people. And so what I'm saying is don't lean into that fear. Lean into the optimism and the positivity and the hope that comes from a new generation of elected leadership. And so that's what I hope people will go to the ballot box thinking about. And when I pledge to put people first, I mean all of our people in our city. And that is our young people, that's our seniors, that's our tenants, that's our small businesses. That's everyone who makes up this beautiful city we call home. And so there's so much more for DC, and we're now have the opportunity to make the next 50 years of DC something that we all believe in, and have real leadership that wants to put people first in that next 50 years of DC.
Yeah, now we look at some of the polling. We know that public polling has been somewhat limited, but what do you make of what you see right now? Obviously you have a significant lead over your primary opponent in this race, but a lot of voters are still undecided, and we're close to the end of this race. What do you make of that?
You know what, I think there's a lot going on, right? There's a lot going on the national level. People are struggling with the affordability crisis that I'm running on, and people are dealing with that. And so oftentimes people can be distracted from local politics. And I think I would attribute all that is happening, people just trying to survive, afford groceries, afford utilities, afford housing. And oftentimes that means that they don't get a chance to double down and pay attention to what's happening on the local political level. So I hope people will recognize that everything that's happening on the national level, everything that's happening every day. I know people think, oh, I don't do politics, but I always tell people, look, you may not do politics, politics will do you, right? Because the policies we put in place will impact your lives. And I ask them to believe in a leader who understands that and understands that the policies that I put forward and the leadership that I display will be one that puts people first. And I will say I've built such a broad coalition. 4 of my colleagues are currently supporting me, the former Attorney General, Carl Racine, so many organizations like Free DC and Sierra Club, and just 25 labor unions, our workers, our firefighters, our teachers, our nurses, our transit workers, they are standing with me, and I hope that will be a testament to the people of this city that they should stand with me as well, because this is not about me, but it is about us as a community and what we can be, and I'm excited for that future, and they should be too.
What role do you think the federal government plays in what we're seeing right now? One, the tone of this campaign, but also what is happening in the city.
I think it plays a huge role. I mean, we have been under federal siege, as you saw. We now have a new surge of federal troops that will be patrolling on our streets. Federal immigration enforcement has not stopped. ICE is still very much present in our community. And as we see, people are very much afraid of what that means. And people also want to see leadership that's going to use every legal tool we have, be a real strategic partner with Attorney General Brian Schwab, who's going to walk the halls of Congress and make the case for D.C. And to Congress people to stand with D.C. and not overturn our laws, and who's going to work with the organizations on the ground right now and the people on the ground to fight back. So I think that very much is a huge part of this election and what people are feeling. And people need a leader who is going to reflect what they are feeling, the fear they're feeling, the pain they're feeling, the uneasiness they are feeling, and know that I am with them in this fight, and I'm going to stay with them in this fight and be an advocate for them on the national stage.
What do you say to your opponent who has put it front and center, saying that you will not be able to keep district residents safe when it comes to public safety issues and legislation, whether it be the MPD crime stat scandal or your voting record in terms of what you feel about the juvenile or youth curfew?
Yeah, I honestly think that I am the most experienced leader in public safety. That experience comes from my years as a prosecutor, both in Philadelphia and then right here in D.C. I'm the only candidate and the only council member who's ever prosecuted very serious crimes here in this city. I know the tools it takes to get it done. I also know, because I've done the intervention work, I have done the prevention work, I know that those things all can happen at the same time. The work I've done on Kennedy Street in Ward 4 in Petworth, the ability for me to be able to reduce crime in my own community by using prevention, intervention, and enforcement work shows that I have a track record of actually delivering, and to take that same approach and strategy citywide is going to be something I do. But I also tell people that I come into this race not just a former prosecutor, not as a council member who's done some public safety work, but as a mother of a black son. And when I think about my son Pierce, I think that I want him, when he is walking around with his early childhood educators, I want to be okay that when they take their daily walks, that he's not going to be struck by guns and he's going to be in a safe community. And so I come to with that vigilance. I also know that he is a young black boy, and I want him to be safe, and I want people to treat him as a young child when he is a young black boy, and to have that accountability, but also that love and that support and that and the investments that we know we need. And so I am so ready to lead this city in public safety and do prevention, enforcement, and intervention work, because I believe that we can walk and chew at the same time, as my grandmother would say, and every agency under my administration will be charged with public safety.
We just implemented ranked choice voting. This is the first time we've used this form of voting. How was it for you?
It was good. You got to go slow. I will say, I took my time. I tell people, take your time. You have an opportunity to review your ballot, so make sure you don't miss any of the choices for the various positions that are on the ballot. But overall, it was a good experience, and I was really proud to be able to cast my ballots, not just for myself, but for some really great candidates who put themselves out there to also co-lead with me the next 50 years of this city.
Did you rank in the race for mayor?
I did.
Can you tell us who or what went into that decision?
I ranked anyone who I felt had the shared values with me in this race.
Is there a critical value that was at the top in terms of your list of values? The same values I'm running on, someone who's going to fight for affordability, someone who's going to keep our city public safety at top of mind, believe in basic government services, and real integrity and trust, who is also committed to ending the pay-to-play politics that has had a real stronghold on our city for so long. What other race are you watching closely?
I'm watching all the races closely. I think the at-large race, we have had some great candidates step up to run. I ranked in the at-large race because we need at-large council members who are going to fight for all residents in all 8 wards of this city, and we need real champions on the council to do that. Obviously, I was excited to look at the Democratic State Committee. No one's talking about this race, but it's an important part of our city as we talk about fighting for D.C. statehood and fighting back our autonomy. Having a strong state committee is actually critical and important. So that's the race I'm going to be watching.
We know that Mayor Bowser, this is the first time she's not going to be on the ballot in more than a decade, and she's not endorsed a candidate. What do you make of that? What does that say?
You know, I think that she wants the DC voters to make that decision, and I think that's actually a great thing for her to say, look, I've had my time in leadership, is now a time for a new leader, and the people, the residents of this city have to select that new leader. So I'm glad that she made the decision to just let the DC voters make the decision on who they want to lead.
Your last message to voters.
My last message to voters, one, to vote, actually vote, make a plan to vote, early vote. Of course, rank me first for mayor. But again, as I've said before, this race really is about who do you trust to fight for residents in all 8 wards in this city. And I hope that you know that I have ran this race with putting people first, and I'm going to be a leader who continues to put people first. So go in that ballot box, not in fear, but in hope for a new DC that we're all going to work together to bring.
Janeese, thank you so much. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Again, that was Ward 4 Council Member Janeese Lewis George. Now here's my conversation with former at-large Council Member Kenyan McDuffie. Kenyan, we have less than a week, or a little more than a week, I guess, at this point, until primary election day. How you feeling?
I feel fantastic. I mean, the energy across Washington, D.C. Is electric. Everybody who I've spoken to, everybody whose door I've knocked on, thousands of them across all 8 wards, have said that they want the next mayor to be somebody who's prepared on day one to fight and deliver for all D.C. They want somebody who brings experience, understanding how to manage a $21 billion budget in a way that keeps people safe, that invest in education and quality schools, and that creates the jobs by investing in those businesses across the city. And I bring that experience to bear. I have been really doing the work, delivering results for Washington, D.C. for 13 and a half years as a council member, and I'm prepared on day one to lead.
Early in-person voting begins today. Who do you have here with you?
I've got my mom here with me today. I've got my sister, my nephew, my brother are here as well. I've got another nephew. We've got a big McDuffie family, but importantly, I've got residents who are invested in Washington, D.C. People who have been in this city, who love this city, and who want to make sure that we have leadership who will fight back against Donald Trump and hostile administration and anybody in Congress or otherwise who threatens the livelihood of the 700,000 residents of Washington, D.C.
Yeah, you bring up Donald Trump there because a lot of D.C. voters will say he is one of the biggest threats to this city and its autonomy. So how do you go toe-to-toe with the Trump administration?
Well, what you do is you go toe-to-toe against Trump by representing Washington, D.C. You put D.C. residents first. You don't worry about these federal folks because we're focused like a laser on the things that are going to keep D.C. safe, on the things that are going to make Washington, D.C. more affordable for the residents who live here. Those longtime residents who are feeling the squeeze on all sides needs a fighter who's going to reduce the cost of housing, rents, reduce the cost of groceries and utilities, making sure that we're putting in place policies that keep people here. And that's what I'm fighting for. It's been a fight that I've been waging for over a decade on the council, trying to make Washington, D.C. more racially equitable, more socially just, and more economically inclusive. And I'm going to deliver a government that is accountable to the people. We're going to use the people's resources for the people's priorities.
You said don't worry about those federal folks. I feel like that's tough to do right now.
Well, listen, the federal folks, if they want a city that's clean and safe, they're not going to get an argument with me. Frankly, they're not going to get an argument from anybody who lives here. We're going to make Washington, D.C. the safest, cleanest, most affordable city in the country, and that's what this task is, which is why the stakes are so high. We don't need any voters sitting on the sidelines in this election. This is the most important D.C. mayoral election of our lifetimes, and we need somebody who can deliver a city that works for more people. And I don't just show up as a candidate for mayor. I've been showing up for Washington, D.C. as a public servant.
You say this is the most important of our lifetime in terms of the mayoral race. Why?
Because we've got a city right now where people can't afford to stay, right? Longtime residents, senior citizens who've been in this city, whose tax dollars supported us during the toughest times in our history in the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s, they deserve to be able to stay here, age in place with dignity. And that's what the fight looks like. And that's why I'm running for mayor. I'm running for mayor to fight and deliver for all D.C., Lorenzo. And when I say all D.C., I mean all 700,000 residents across all 8 wards. We're showing up. We're meeting them where they are. We're not waiting for them to come down to the Wilson building. That's not what the fight looks like. The fight looks like representing people in a way where you show up for them and you deliver resources and opportunity to those communities, whether they are senior citizens or young people who are feeling disconnected and frustrated with their government. I'm showing up for everybody in a way that no mayor ever has before.
Now, we talk about affordability here. Some people will say you have been on the council. You should take some of the blame for the direction the city is going in right now. How do you respond to that?
What I'll do is take responsibility for the things that I've been able to do and the things that I haven't been able to do. It is important for elected officials to hold themselves accountable. And I'm that type of leader, that I hold myself accountable to be able to deliver. But I'm also somebody who understands I have a record of delivering real results. When it comes to criminal justice reform, I authored the NEAR Act to introduce a public health-based approach to crime prevention and intervention, establish the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, made policing more transparent and accountable by reporting data as a requirement of the Metropolitan Police Department. I authored comprehensive juvenile justice reform. I authored affordable housing policies that have delivered hundreds of millions of dollars to build affordable housing in this city, and is responsible for building hundreds of units across the last decade. So I will accept the areas where we need much more improvement, but I'm also somebody who understands how important it is to build coalitions across differences and deliver results for people. And I've done that in a really meaningful way, perhaps more than anybody else who is running for mayor in this race today.
So when you talk about public safety, you seem to be outpacing your opponent in terms of polling when it comes to that topic in particular. How will you do things differently from what we've seen over the last couple of years?
We're going to make sure that when it comes to public safety, what I understand, unlike anybody else running in this race, that in order to have public safety, you must first have public trust. And I'm going to appoint a chief of police who restores a culture of accountability and transparency at the Metropolitan Police Department, because right now that trust is shaken. That trust is shaken by the leadership that has been broiled in a crime stats scandal, but it's also shaken by the cooperation between Metropolitan Police Department and ICE. I'm going to end the cooperation between MPD and ICE because that is eroding the trust that is essential to be able to deliver a safer city. We're going to get rid of that because those federal officials, those federal law enforcement don't know how to police in a way that Metropolitan Police Department does. And we're going to make sure that we get rid of that so we can have a police department with officers who walk their beats, who know the streets, who understand and know the senior citizens who've been in the community for 30 or 40 years, but also know the names of the young people who play on the playgrounds like over here at Turkey Thicket, and know the names of the shop owners. We need police officers invested in their communities, building that trust, showing up before somebody calls 911 to be able to deliver safer communities, not being reactionary. We know that we have rank and file officers who are protecting and serving every single day. I'm going to deliver a police department that rebuilds that trust, ends cooperation between MPD and ICE, and delivers a safer city for everybody, regardless of where you live and your zip code.
So we know that they're not just working on immigration enforcement, these federal officers, they are assisting the DC Police Department in other areas as well. So do you end that total cooperation, or are they not there for roll call anymore? Are they not there at these police precincts?
We're going to end the cooperation because right now it is eroding the trust that's absolutely critical to deliver a safer city. ICE isn't trained like the Metropolitan Police Department. And I know this unlike any other candidate because of the work that I've done. The 13 years I've spent on the Council of the District of Columbia hasn't just been spent with rhetoric or complaining about things. I've fundamentally changed systems of policing and criminal justice reform in Washington, D.C. I've done that work. I authored Washington, D.C.'s Police Worn Body Camera program, which was a model for jurisdictions around the country. Before I was on the council, I was a civil rights attorney in President Barack Obama's United States Department of Justice, where I traveled the country investigating police departments where there are allegations of a pattern or practice of misconduct, unconstitutional policing. I worked to reform systems of unconstitutional policing, and I brought that experience to the Council of the District of Columbia. So I know what justice looks like, Lorenzo. I know what fairness looks like. I've spent my entire career as a public servant working to bend the moral arc of the universe closer to justice. That's the work that I've been doing as a council member because I know what justice looks like. But I also know what injustice looks like. Having been a young person, growing up in this city, when we had a murder capital of the United States, when Washington, D.C. was experiencing violence at its highest levels, I grew up with that backdrop. I know what it's like to be targeted as a young person, and have been arrested in my own community as a teenager in Washington, D.C., when we had federal law enforcement waging a war on drugs that really mass incarcerated people who look like me in Washington, D.C. So I know what fairness looks like as a former prosecutor who's fought crime and delivered justice for victims, but I also know what injustice looks like. And I'm gonna make sure that we deliver a department that works for everybody. That's the task, that's the work, and I'm the only candidate for mayor prepared to do that on day one.
We have outgoing mayor Muriel Bowser. She's been at the helm for what, more than a decade now. She's not endorsed a candidate in this race as of yet. How significant do you think that is, or what do you think that says?
You know what the most important endorsement in this race is, Lorenzo? It's the endorsement of the people of Washington, D.C. I'm fighting for their endorsement. I'm representing the people. I'm not worried about other politicians. I'm happy to get endorsements from people who have served. Muriel Bowser has served for 12 years. She is born and raised not too far from this community in Ward 5. But you know what? She's not running for mayor. I am. I'm running for mayor to fight and deliver for all D.C. I want the endorsement of the 700,000 residents across D.C. and every voter who's coming to the polls.
Your last message for voters?
My last message is nobody can afford to sit on the sidelines in this race. We need experience that's going to stand up, fight back against Donald Trump, protect home rule, and deliver a city that is safer and more affordable, and a government that works for more people. I'm putting people first in Washington, D.C., just as I have for 13 and a half years. I'm born and raised in Washington, D.C. I'm a son of this city. I love this city, but not a single day of public service has ever felt like work to me. This work is personal, and I'm going to get things done on day one. Let's go. We're going to win this race. Let's go make it happen.
Again, that was former at-large council member Kenyan McDuffie. You know, as I mentioned, there are a number of people hoping to be D.C.'s next mayor. So now I want to play some of my other interviews with the other candidates. You have Hope Solomon, Gary Goodweather, Rini Sampath, and Vincent Orange. So tell me why this race for mayor?
Well, why not? I'm born and raised in the city. I went to DC public school, but I'm most proud of being raised in my parents' family business that they started in 1977.
Yeah. So what's been your biggest concern? Like, what led you to this race to say, you know what, I need to run for mayor?
Okay. So
not city council, not ANC, but you know, I'm going straight to the top. We're going to run the city.
The big defining moment for me was I was national security for 17 years. Trump administration came in and I was doged last July. And I thought, okay, where do you take all the frustration and how do you put it to good use? And for me, it was running for office, getting a platform, getting the microphone, and being able to speak out.
Yeah. So tell me about being doged, as you put it. Like, how has that changed your life?
Well, in this election, the big buzzword is affordability, right? Yeah. And I would say there's nobody that knows that more than I do, right? How do you pay for groceries? How do you make sure your rent's paid? How do you figure out where you're gonna live? And looking into the future and seeing how you're gonna land.
Yeah. So I look at your platform, I look at your site, and you talk about a number of issues that a lot of DC voters will agree with. You talk about issues with the rats, you talk about city services, people responding to some of your issues. You name it, you're talking about it. And everyone will say, yes, this is it, this is it. So what is your big push to voters who are watching and they may not have heard of Hope Solomon?
Okay, for Hope's, you hear of Hope, you hear for Hope for DC, and I want you to think of this. I was on your side of the table. I was looking at the candidates and I thought, am I represented in those candidates? The answer to me was no, so I put myself out there. So if you want someone that lived and breathed every part of her life in this city, it's me. DC Public School, small business owner, navigating City Hall with 311 tickets, waiting for a permit for 6 months to a year. I have been there and lived it.
What about voters who say, why should I take a chance on Hope? She hasn't served in city government or any elected role, and yeah, like, why?
Well, I'm fearless. So when you look at a candidate, you think, what's the character? Does that candidate have grit? Are they fearless against this administration? And I think, what do I bring to the table? It's opening up my door and saying, because of my experience in all of these phases of my life, I think take a chance, because if you want to vote for a candidate that has City Hall experience, you have your candidate. If you want somebody new, you have Hope for DC. Yeah.
So someone new. You mentioned affordability being your primary concern, but obviously being mayor, being at the top, there's a host of other issues, not only tackling some of the local issues, but also this relationship with the federal government where you worked for nearly 2 decades. How do you bridge that gap there in the relationship that seems to be a bit fraught right now?
Well, also when I think about affordability, I think about the budget. We are in a budget crisis right now, so any candidate that sits up here and says, these are all the programs that I'm going to promise and not a way to fund them, I think that's where rubber meets the road. With my campaign, I am able to answer questions and I'm able to say how I will fund programs. And when I say I will fully fund the police and I have ideas on how to grow DC, those are the buckets that this campaign is excelling at.
Where do you think DC is wasting money right now?
Oh, there's fraud and waste. And when I think of fraud and waste, I think of efficiency. So it's, do we have the right people hired into these management positions that are running the agencies efficiently? I would argue no. We have a management problem in DC.
We have a management problem in DC. So, and you know how to fix it apparently. So how do you even find the right people to take on those roles?
We have a brain trust. How many people have gotten doged, right, recently? And the resumes are great. I mean, you look and you say, oh, you've done this and you've done this and all these skills, and we need to hire these people in.
Yeah. So how do you bring more revenue? You talk about the city having an issue right now with its budget. With more than 20,000 federal workers in the DC area and in DC without a job right now, our economy cannot rely on the federal government anymore. So what do you change?
So I say day one in my campaign, I'm bringing all the businesses that decided to put their headquarters in Maryland and Virginia. We're bringing them into DC and we're asking them why. Why did you pick that? And we are making it easy for businesses to develop their headquarters in DC. Is it permit? Is it safety, right? Mm-hmm. What is it that is stopping them from coming into DC and opening their doors? And that will create jobs and revenue.
Now, you worked with businesses in Georgetown, I know that. So what has been the biggest concern in DC's biggest business community in terms of their issues right now, why they may not be able to stay open, why they might relocate? What's the general consensus there?
Oh, it's the taxes, it's the red tape, it's whatever the Wilson building votes on. It seems to be a roadblock. And independent and small businesses are the backbone of our city.
Yeah, public safety, another big issue.
And I would also like to say, I'm a candidate that will stand behind this police chief and say, we will not be getting a new police chief, because right now we need stability in our police force.
So you like Jeffrey Carroll, the interim chief, you want him to stay there?
I did, because we've seen him step up to a very difficult situation that would have been challenging for anyone. And what I have heard, speaking with police officers, there's morale back again, and we're headed on the right path.
Okay, so this teen curfew, we know that's part of it. Where do you stand on that?
I am for teen curfews. However, I'd like to say it is a tool, and we need to shift our response from a reactive to a proactive. Stop with the Band-Aids. Residents are sick of it.
Yeah. What do you say to your council, members on the council? Obviously, if you're a mayor, you have to work with this group. First, what do you think of this current council and the work they're doing in the district?
Well, here's the thing. Residents are sick of lip service. We are sick of the political rhetoric that's going out. We want to see results. And when we open up our door and we start feeling safe, we don't have to kick a rat out of the way to get to our car. Maybe we have a mosquito czar, okay?
A mosquito czar?
A mosquito czar. All right, we are about to get into mosquito season. How many candidates are talking about that?
A mosquito, I got you. I can support you with that. As I'm sitting on my porch this summer, I will certainly be thinking of you and the mosquito czar. So how do you work with these council members? I mean, you have a lot of ideas, a lot of things you want to see through, but they have to approve them.
Listen, being raised in this city, we have council members with different perspectives, and it's all about sitting at the table and having a conversation and representing every resident across all 8 wards.
Yeah. All right, we got to talk about education now, because I don't think that's been a big part of this conversation as we've been talking about the race for DC mayor and what's next for DC public schools and charter schools. And one of the big issues we know facing families right now is this truancy rate. You're talking about nearly 40%. How do you get kids to stay in school? How do you get them interested in school?
So there's 2 things I want to talk to you about. One is the truancy, and I think it is shameful that we have so many agencies overseeing truancy, because that's where the lack of efficiency comes in, right? How do we actually consolidate all of that into one agency and have a better handle on the data? That's number 1. Number 2 is, how do we get kids excited about school again? And I keep pushing this on the campaign. We need another pathway. It's not always about college and university. We need trade school paths in our school system. As a DC public school student, I realize we're all on different pathways, and we need to be supportive in that respect.
That's yet another thing you're going to have to pay for, right?
Oh, but funding. When we think of education, that is a fixed cost in my administration, okay? We have all these safety net programs over here that we make promises on. That is a fixed cost.
So education's fixed. Anything else that's going to be fixed that you just will not touch?
Oh.
Or at least increase the budget for?
Right, and when we think of police and people say fund the police, what does that mean? I have a little different approach. As a small business owner, my business pays tax into business improvement districts. There is very little oversight. I would make sure that we made 50% of a bid budget go towards safety in the city, and that is how I'm going to fund the police department.
Through these bids.
Through these bids.
That's different.
Yes, very different. Let's talk more on that.
Yeah, so let's talk about it a bit more. So you think that that is an effective way to fund the police outside of the money that's going to the department right now? So if you're not using this current revenue stream,
right,
where do you place that money?
When I think about money that's already earmarked, that should be going to safety, that we as businesses don't think there's enough from the business improvement districts, and there's hundreds of millions floating in the city. And you said, where's the waste and the fraud? I'm raising a flag and I'm saying, we need to audit our bids and we need to look at the budget and say, when they're telling us safety is going into the budget and it's 1% of a $26 million budget, why can't it be more?
Yeah. So this is it. Voters they're listening to the candidates right now, seeing who they want to choose. Obviously, you want them to rank you first. What do you tell voters right now who might be watching and they're still undecided about who they're going to support?
Listen, vote. You have candidates that have been on the council, you have candidates that are former council members, and you have candidates like me. I am a resident. I would like to think I'm relatable purely from the face of I have lived every phase of my life in the city. I walk the talk, and you can ask me anything, and I'm going to give you an answer.
In this case, why Rini?
Absolutely. You know, just earlier today, I've been starting to hear some of the other candidates parrot our talking points, which I'm proud of, quite honestly. I came into this race because I want to hear that DC government needs to actually work. But the difference between those candidates and me is that they served on city council a cumulative 17 years while these problems started and while these problems have been in existence. I mean, some of the stats that I throw out there is that the DC Housing Authority executive director got a $40,000 bonus, same year that we had the highest vacancies in affordable housing. We saw the $67 million that were spent on Snowcrete and many millions given to a company that was actually indicted for fraud just last November, right? And so there's this culture where we reward a level of incompetence, and we need to actually be a high-performing organization. The career legislators who are in office right now have proven to us that they can't be the administrator and operator DC needs.
So how does the Rini Sampath administration change all of that? You have not been in public office before, so I know a lot of folks that might be their reservation. They're saying this is such a pivotal moment in the city's history. Can you handle the job?
I think even in my last couple of months of talking to voters, forums, being at the metro stops, I'm sure you've seen me do those types of on-the-ground outreach to voters. People have told me that they're just sick and tired of establishment politics and the old school politics in DC. And we have a political machine at work in Washington, DC, and we need new energy, new fresh blood, and that's who I am. So I think my number one priority will be to clean this mess up, and that's going to happen when we actually appoint real agency heads who have expertise. I'm not going to prioritize loyalty. Quite frankly, I have no one that's puppeting me. I have no special interest groups. We are a true grassroots candidate.
When you talk about this political machine, for folks who are watching, what do you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So over the course of this campaign, a lot of community members, especially native Washingtonians, have expressed to me the frustration with Bowser's political machine. She's been in office for nearly a decade. Prior to that, you have insiders who are beholden to real estate development interests, other special interest groups like Pepco. And so the way that I see it is you have folks like Bowser who have anointed a successor, in this case, Kenyan McDuffie. And in that way, I think it's time for someone completely new to change that course.
So you get in office, what's your first act? What is the first thing you take care of?
Well, a member of my community, William, died of cardiac arrest because 911 coded his call incorrectly. And one of the things I have been speaking out about so passionately is Office of United Communications must be reformed. They're sending our EMS to the wrong quadrant, northwest instead of northeast, and to me that's a life or death situation. Death doesn't discriminate, and I have to take care of that problem immediately. I see that same issue across many other agencies. That includes DCHA, that includes our DPW. I mean, the fact that a sidewalk doesn't get repaired so quickly in DC, those are the issues that I believe I'm uniquely equipped to take care of given my administrative and operational background. And it's unfortunate that the political insiders today haven't been paying attention to these basics at all.
Yeah, of course we have to talk about the youth curfews. I think last time you were here, that was still a topic of conversation. Since then, the council passed the emergency or the permanent bill setting forth for this youth curfew late summer and thereon. But let's talk about this summer, this emergency legislation that they have not taken up as of yet. Do you think that they should get this through or no?
First and foremost, I think the problem that we're facing today, it's a massive DC government failure. I think folks in this race are even pointing fingers at each other, and my go-to has been, you have had 17 plus years to serve DC government. Why are we here in a situation where once again, there's federal intervention on the table? The fact that Perot is about to step in, has stepped in. She's calling in the FBI, law enforcement, to go and find these children's parents in schools, DCPS, telling them to hand over the data. All of this is extremely dangerous, and the way that I look at it is that we should have been able to take care of our own communities to make sure that this doesn't happen. So I'm not advocating for zero consequences for these young people. In fact, I think that one way to take an approach would be, let's give them a community service commitment. Let's make sure that they have mental health resources immediately. Let's make sure there are consequences, but consequences with those types of guardrails and restorative justice measures. At the same time, we need a long-term strategy. So I've talked about Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program, making that year-round. Those are type of measures I want to see. But at this moment, I think we have to ardently be focused on defending home rule. And Perot stepping in, Trump stepping in is another example of us all being in jeopardy.
How do you stand up for home rule as a mayor with very limited power, so to speak, when it comes to this aspect of governing?
The first thing is that you cannot cede even a little bit of authority. I think Mayor Bowser made the mistake of participating in federal task forces as it relates to law enforcement, allowing the National Guard to come in. She gave an inch, and they've taken more and more and more. The other aspect of this is strengthening the relationship with the Attorney General's office. I've appreciated what Brian Schwab has been able to do thus far. At the same time, are there other tools in the mayor's office toolkit, which I see as essentially a pulpit, to make sure that Donald Trump and his administration knows they can't just walk in and take over our communities. And we've seen Mayor Bowser instead be at the same podium with Donald Trump and I should say Donald Trump's administration. And so that I see as a terrible mistake and one that I would not be making.
Yes. So we know right now everyone's talking about the city's revenue stream and how it needs to be diversified. How do you attract more businesses to the district in this sort of economic climate?
It's been so disappointing to also see that DC is #1 in the nation in small business failures, or I should say first-year business failures. And along the course of my campaign, I've been talking to many business owners, independently. A lot of restaurants closing. And at this time, they're telling me information that's quite frankly upsetting. I'll give you one example. A business owner in DuPont told me that when he tried to get his permit for his restaurant, a DC government official tried to shake him down for $10,000. And so this goes back to my point about the culture of corruption that we have. I mean, we know that one sitting council member has been indicted for bribery charges. And so just across the board, if we don't root out that level of corruption, we're not going to see the actual businesses coming to DC because they don't even want to open up here to begin with. And so that's going to be act #1. If we don't clean that up, we're not going to see that change. So fix permitting, root out the corruption culture that we have, and then make sure that it's easy for them to open up and stay open. We don't need new taxes. We don't need no fines and fees. And that's something that I'm going to really, really focus on.
We talk about this June 16th day, but we know that people are making their decisions well before then. What do you tell them?
I would tell them that vote with your conscience. I think this is a consequential election for DC. We finally have the opportunity to change things out from the old guard, the old way of doing politics, where the most vulnerable residents in DC have been affected by this culture of corruption that we have in Washington, DC. And this is an opportunity to bring in a new generation, fresh blood, new energy. And that's what this campaign represents. And we are so excited to continue on to the finish line.
All right.
Thanks for having me at the table.
Good to finally have you here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so as this campaign presses on, we know that you're, yes, running for mayor again. You ran for mayor before.
Yes.
You ran for council again.
Yes.
Most voters didn't choose you, so why make this run again? Why run for mayor again?
Well, I have a record of achievement. When I'm in office, I have 13 years as an elected official. And during that time span, I was able to jumpstart economic development for the city, jumpstart school modernization for the city, jumpstart recreation renovations for the city. I'm the one that got the minimum wage with indexing, start at $15, will be $18.40 on July 1st. I'm the one that established DC Emancipation Day as a holiday that's been running now for 26 years, reopened McKinley Technology High School. So I have a record of delivery. And at this point in time, looking at the field, I say match my 13 years of delivery with Mr. McDuffie's 13 years and Ms. Janeese's 5 years. So I think right now it's an orange moment, and I'm needed right now.
It's an orange moment, and you're needed right now. Why do you think you're so needed right now?
Because we need institutional knowledge, we need experienced leadership, and we need measured outcomes. Now, for me, I've been here during the bad times. I was here when we had a control board, when we had junk bond status, when the control board was running the government. But I was also part of the solution. We went from junk bond status to AAA bond status. We went from a mayor with no control to a mayor with backward control. We went from a $518 million deficit to $1.6 billion in the bank. And you know, I'm not Benjamin Banneker, but I did change the comprehensive plan to lay out Union Market. I co-chaired the North Capitol Metro Station development, which was the foundation for the birth of NOMA. So I have a record of achievement, and since we've been in that bad times, got us out of those bad times, we're in a very serious moment right now, where if we're not, you know, on top of things, we could be back with a control board. And I think as an attorney, certified public accountant, former Ward 5 council member, 2 terms, 2 terms as an at-large council member, and former Democratic National Committee man, I bring institutional knowledge, experience, and a record of delivery, and it's time for more delivery for the citizens of the District of Columbia.
So you mentioned these being serious times right now. What are you referencing? Why is this moment so crucial in your eyes?
Well, because the city has really gotten to this point based on a plan called the Economic Resurgence of Washington, D.C., Citizens Plan for Prosperity. 40 action items. The authors was Charlene Drew Jarvis and Richard Monte. The executioners were Mayor Williams, Vincent Orange, and the rest of the council. That's what brings us to where we are today. But now we find a different Washington, D.C. Because of COVID, because of the new federal government. We've lost 22,000 jobs, and we can't count on that. That has basically, it's killing our economy. And so we need to pivot. So we need to have vision. So where do we go to? And what I bring to the table is a vision as to how we jumpstart our economy and get it moving forward.
What's an example? I mean, how do you do that during these times? You know, this is a precarious time for a lot of people, and you know, a lot of folks are just holding on to their money right now, not just everyday folks, but also these businesses.
Well, the thing that we have going for us is we are a $22 billion government. 11.7 billion is generated from local DC taxpayers. So we don't have a money problem, we have a management problem. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that we budget for 4,500 police officers, but we only have 3,100 officers. So what's happening to the other FTE money, that 1,400 FTEs? We are balancing our budgets off of traffic cameras. We're hurting the people. We generated $300 million from those traffic cameras, and they're only supposed to be there to fund Vision Zero. Vision Zero doesn't cost $300 million to fund. What happened to the extra money? Paid family leave. Paid family leave was generating so much money that the council and the mayor had to reduce the rate. But it did generate $400 million one year. And it generates, so where are those dollars? We need to have, what I'm saying, a revenue alignment commission. So I can line those dollars up, know what dollars are coming in, are they being used for their intended purposes, and what's the surplus? And those are the dollars that I can utilize to address the issues that are taking place in the District of Columbia. Public safety is number one, because public safety not only provides safety, you know, in our neighborhoods must be safe. We must have measurable outcomes of reducing violent crime.
So DC says the violent crime numbers are going down. So what do you do differently there?
Well, one thing is that's a problem because we don't know that because of the controversy that's taking place right now. There appears to be some there's an allegation of fixing numbers. But for a resident, we don't care about being statistically safe. We want to be actually safe. I want to know, am I safe? Don't tell me about a statistic. Am I safe? Can I go down to the Navy Yard? Can I walk around in my community? Can my children go out and play? Can I go to the restaurant? Can I go to the Nats game and be safe? So that's what it's about. And it's a great opportunity for a new mayor because we get to select a new police chief. And we have to make sure that that police chief understands in the nation's capital, we need to have policing, but not over-policing.
So you're not a fan of Jeffrey Carroll?
I won't say that I'm not a fan of Jeffrey Campbell. I think Jeffrey Campbell needs to be reviewed. And right now, we see what he's doing, and he will be reviewed on his performance. But for me, it's prevention when possible, enforcement when necessary, but opportunity for all. So we want to provide opportunity to our residents. We want to provide opportunity for our young people. In an Orange administration, a person graduating from high school will have options. One option, you will be able to go to the University of the District of Columbia tuition free. Another option, as the mayor of the District of Columbia, all agencies under my control will have paid apprenticeships for high school graduates. And that means that a person graduating from high school, not ready to go to college, but needs employment, I will provide that pathway. So if you
Within city government?
Within city government.
Okay.
So if you came to me and said, hey, I think I want to be an accountant, then I'm going to place you at the Office of Tax and Revenue. Entry-level position, health benefits, retirement benefits, you're working. If you want to get into event planning, I'm going to place you at Events DC. We count on 25 to 30 million people coming to the city on an annual basis. There's always a big conference going on. So what better way for a young person to learn about event planning? If you're into the environment, I'm going to put you over at the Department of the Environment. And so there are great opportunities. And I'm not just saying this, I have a record of doing it. That's what I've been doing for the last 3 years. At Howard University, I had 44 high school seniors, went through the program, 40 of them graduated. We already had a memorandum of understanding that 22 would be hired in full-time apprenticeships. That took place. 82.5% of them received and earned credentials, basic life support and CPR. So it works. I worked with Bill Within. They had an artificial intelligence youth apprenticeship program. So those are the things that we can do, and that indirectly, that affects crime. That reduces crime, because now I'm taking up young people's time. But I'm letting you know you have a pathway.
So you talk about these plans and what you've done, and why don't you think that has resonated with voters in the past in terms of when you made these runs, whether it's for city council again or mayor? Like, where do you think the disconnect is? Do you think there's a greater chance now that this is a race without an incumbent?
Well, I think it's a great chance because of the competition and the mix and what's needed at this point in time. You know, everything in life has a time. Everything has a season. But the thing is, whether I'm in government or out of government, I'm still a public servant. You know, I was out of government for the last 3 years. What I was doing, working with youth, getting them in apprenticeship programs. When I wasn't in Ward 5 and when one of the candidates tried to change the comprehensive plan, tried to take the historical projects, sites out of Ward 5 and place it in Ward 1. Vincent Orange created the Brave 35, fighting for DC, and won the battle to maintain the National Cemetery, Soldiers Home, the Washington Hospital Center, Children's Hospital, Macmillan Reservoir, and New York Playground. So I'm there. You always feel Vincent Orange.
What was the one issue that, went off for you, where that was sort of the lightning rod to say, you know what, I need to jump in the race to change this?
The rats.
The rats?
No, well, actually,
the rats did it for you.
Well, it's sort of, it's not necessarily one issue.
Okay.
It is a lifetime of experience being here in the city, starting businesses in the city, hiring people, and just seeing that basic services aren't working. That whether it's trash collection or the rats, that the DC government really isn't functioning in a way that is supporting its residents, that it's lifting DC residents up. DC really and it is effectively in every part of DC government. It is about penalizing DC residents and DC businesses rather than supporting them.
Interesting.
This is DC, and as a business owner, It is about, it's not, DC doesn't give me the tools to succeed. It doesn't give business owners the tools to succeed. It sets requirements that are made by politicians that have no idea what the implications of those requirements, and then penalizes residents and businesses when they can't meet it. That is not a recipe for success for our city. And now our city's on a path that's unsustainable. We have our budget, our spending has gone up almost 70% in about 7 years. Our economy is down 8.5%, and our literacy rates continue to, we've made some gains, but continue to be some of the lowest in the country, and our long-term outcomes for DC residents continue to decline.
What do you change then? And when you reference the economy there, we know that the federal government has played a big role in that. Just the overall economy right now, that's where a lot of people are really feeling the squeeze. So how do you manage that? How do you change and bring in that revenue, bring in more revenue?
Yeah, I mean, number one is that DC is anti-business. And one of the things that I want to make sure that I get across is that we are going to make DC open for business. We need to stop being no and stop being yes.
What does that mean?
One of the first things that I'm going to do is completely overhaul the Department of Buildings and the Department of Professional Licensing and Compliance. It is too costly. DC in and of itself makes it costly to do business, and it takes too long. So I'm going to completely overhaul the Department of Buildings. So then I am creating a single point of contact within DC government whose sole responsibility when an application comes in to ensure almost like a concierge for a business. Bring in an application to get a business started. It's that individual's responsibility to ensure that from the time that I put in the application all the way to approval, that business owner has all the resources they need to be able to navigate DC to be able to get that approval. Because right now, it just takes forever. It really goes into a void when you're trying to start a business.
Yeah. So we know that you're in real estate development. A lot of your opponents are talking about these really ambitious housing plans over the next 5 years or so. So what is your plan in that regard? Because that's what a lot of folks are struggling with right now, especially when it comes to affording a home in the district.
Yeah, I mean, number one is I am committed to creating 52,000 multi-generational homes that can accommodate an individual, can accommodate a family throughout their entire life cycle, throughout their entire lifespan. And the way that we do it, I'll say part of it, it's hard to get good data on it, but about 10 to 20% of our existing housing stock is vacant, because DC has these requirements that really don't allow homeowners or apartment owners to be able to even rent it. So the most effective way or the quickest way for us to be able to get more housing is to use that part of the housing stock that we already have and make it leasable. Number two is that, as mentioned, we're going to completely revamp Department of Buildings and the permitting approval process so that we can build faster. We need to speed to market. We need to be able to build faster.
And you think the market is ready for that?
It's absolutely. There's this myth that you can't build and be able to sustain communities, sustain residents that are in their homes and in their communities now. It's just not true. It's about how you do it. And I'll say this is again where I say DC in and of itself makes our city less affordable. Our real estate tax assessments continue to go up, and DC is the one that determines the real estate tax assessments. That is causing both DC homeowners, and that makes them more expensive for DC homeowners and for DC renters as well, because that ultimately gets passed through to renters as well.
Yeah. Let's talk about public safety now. You saw in the news that at least 13 DC police officers are on administrative leave right now, facing possible termination because of this whole manipulation of crime stats. They're accused of taking part in that. So obviously there's going to be a big job for the city's next mayor when it comes to building morale in the police department, but also regaining the public's trust. What does that look like in a good weather administration?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, is that in terms of the officers that are going to be let go and rebuilding trust, our Metropolitan Police Department is understaffed. We need to hire more police officers. We're going to recruit from our city. We really don't recruit from our city, but it is also important that our police officers can afford to live in our cities, in our communities. Yeah. To be able to rebuild trust, we need our police officers to be able to raise their kids in the city. I want our police officers to raise their kids with mine as well. That having that invested relationship with the community helps rebuild trust. Accountability, though, the next chief of police, I am ultimately responsible. I was a former Army captain in the United States Army, and I was responsible for everything that my people do and do not do. The next chief of police, they will be a subject matter expert and mission driven. The mission being to serve and protect DC residents. If they are not, then that is not the right role for them. Ultimately, accountability comes up to me. But having DC police officers as members of the community creates a safer city.
I want to touch on education really quickly, because I feel like that's a component that has been missing in this conversation about the city's future.
Yeah.
And one thing that really strikes me is when we talk about this chronic absenteeism right now in DC public schools, so many kids are just missing so many days of school.
Yes.
And the district is still trying to figure out why and how to get those students back into the classroom. How do you make that happen? How do you get kids to stay in school and be interested in school?
I think that was a good comment. Stay interested in school. So we are going to hire more social workers, more mental health professionals, more special educators, so that kids have a reason to go to school. And we're going to address the underlying problems of a lot of the truancy and crime. Yeah. Especially amongst our youth, and that is addressing poverty and addressing mental health. And I want to say that when I say that we're going to hire mental health professionals, I really want to stress that, because mental health is health, and being able to provide the resources to our youth through social workers and through mental health professionals is incredibly important, because that is what engages the youth and identifies problems and provides a community that shows our youth that they're cared for, and that there is a reason the kids need to be told to go to school and have a reason to stay in school. And that is what this community of social workers and professionals is going to do.
Yeah. All right. So finally, Garrett, we have less than a minute left. I know.
This flies by.
It goes by
I have so much more to say.
That does it for this special edition of the DC Beat. Don't forget to vote. Thank you so much for your time. Truly the greatest gift. I'll see you on primary election day.